For all the feel good people out there, we are Dust Off the Mic. Oh, that one hit right at the right time. What do you say, Jay?
All my pubes are standing up, Daddy-O.
Dust Off the Mic, Dust Off the Mic. The Dust Off the Mic
No,
podcast.
that's not part of the crimes that I committed. I got a Bigfoot guy. My advice to every comedian I've ever met is like, find your voice.
Yeah!
Sounds like drugs. It was something actiony. It was a very honed in discussion amongst motivated people. Let's talk prescription pads.
Find out who you are.
Most people will never understand what that's like to rely on yourself, not the system. This is what it's all about.
Trust me, you know the difference. I got a long ways to climb before you see a slippage.
Django, welcome to the Dust Off the Mic podcast, man. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course, man. Thank you for having me. It means a lot.
Yeah. Do me a favor. Explain to the people what you do. I mean, obviously the people who know you know what you do, but the people who know me don't. So
yeah. So I have a company called Focus on Words. We are focused on helping people better connect with personal development, as well as help authors better connect with their readers. And so we have a tool called Wrote by Me for authors. And then I personally just love personal development. So I've been just like in the space, reading books, making content. So on TikTok, I'm Django's Truths. And I just try to be as honest and open as I can be, trying to help and support people in whatever ways I can.
Wow. That's awesome. And you're also on Instagram as well. And I follow you on both.
Yeah.
So Django's Truth on Instagram and TikTok, correct?
It's Django Degree on Instagram, and there's
Okay.
Django's Truths on TikTok.
Okay. Now, it seems like you have a very diverse portfolio, man. You're a tech guy. You know, you have a lot of experience, it seems, into the self-help and the self-development. Like, where did all that come from? What drove you to that?
There was a point in my life where I felt like I wasn't who I thought I was. I was having like these moments of just like a crashing and burning of like my personality. I would just lose it. And I really couldn't understand what that was. And I didn't like, just in general, the life that I was living for like 10% of the time. Like 90% of the time, everything was good. I was a great time. I was having fun. But then I would just have these moments where I would just completely fall apart. And I just felt like something had to be wrong for that to keep happening. And if that was the case, like, it wasn't going to work long term, right? Like, because every time you crash and burn, people are like, is he always going to be like this? Is it happening more frequently? So I started trying to read books to better understand myself, and I got started with the like Napoleon Hill Think and Grow Rich, and then I got into like David Goggins and Jordan Peterson, and then I got into like the older literature, like the Gulag Archipelago and Man's Search for Meaning, and now I've gotten all the way into sort of like a spiritual realm with like the Four Agreements, the Mastery of Self, and some of these others. But it's definitely helped a lot in helping me better understand myself and why those things were happening. Because honestly, the truth was I wasn't being honest with myself, and that made things really difficult.
Now, would you care to elaborate on that? Like, what like I don't know if you'd call them outbursts or episodes, or what do you mean?
It was just like an episode. Like I would just go on a tear. Like I would be really mean to people. I would be angry, and like it was almost like I just didn't have control of that time period. Like it was just so much anger. And so I recognized that something about that had to be true, right? At first I was like, oh, that's not really me. You kind of come up with a reason why it happens. But on the last time it kind of happened, I just was on a tear. I was really mean. I was just angry and frustrated, and it was out drinking, just whatever. And so I just was like, I can't have this happen anymore. Like that just I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy that side of myself. And so I was really interested, especially with like Jordan Peterson talking about Carl Jung and like the shadow. And I was like, maybe that is something with me. Like maybe there's something I'm unaware of. And that's what started me on that journey of trying to like integrate myself.
Yeah, almost like controlling the monster within type stuff. Like Jordan Peterson talks a lot about being capable of being an animal or a monster or anything, but having the control and the capacity to understand that it's possible, but not probable to let it out.
Right. But it was also just like, clearly something about me was angry with my life, because you don't get that angry with everyone around you unless something is happening. And I genuinely did not understand what I was so angry about. And it wasn't until I was willing to be really honest with myself about just like the life I was living and the choices that I had made, that I was able to recognize that I wasn't all happy with everything that was going on.
Wow. And I relate to that heavily, man. Like I mean, you can ask my wife. I'm a fairly angry person, mostly in mornings and like in uncontrolled settings. Plus, I come from a bit of a rocky past. You know what I mean? So it's no situational or circumstantial. It's more like what I put myself through, with my whole, recovery and drugs and, in and out of all that.
Hmm.
Um, I call it like alarming fear syndrome. Like it's like if
Yeah.
something shocks me into like an alarm, almost like a PTSD reaction type deal. I hate to label it like that, but it's like
Hmm.
kind of how they would describe it.
Hmm.
Um, and I always tell my wife, like, I've been literally punched awake before. You know what I mean? I've literally
Hmm.
been assaulted in my sleep. So, like, when you wake me up or startle me, I have all this pent up energy and anger to fend off a demon that's not even there. And I
Right.
find that relevant in life too, because a lot of things will bring those, micro incidences out where you're like constantly building block of anger, and
Right.
it talks about that in the fifth agreement too, or
Mhm.
the fourth agree or four agreements, and then
Mhm.
into the fifth agreement.
Yeah.
Like seeing yourself in a theater, I think it used, your perception of things.
Yeah.
It's like not how they seem to see it, but if
Mhm.
you go into their theater, that's how they've painted you as this character in their show.
Right. 100%. I think I think that we're not aware that our beliefs are what make up our lives, and the majority of those beliefs we're unaware of.
Mhm.
And so, like, if you think about it, like I'm like writing a book, but it's just my thoughts because at the end of the day, I don't want it to be like do what I did. It's more of like here are the questions I ask myself. One
Okay.
of the things I started to recognize was that like believing in something seems to be this complex idea, but it's simple to the understanding of like you kind of know what you believe, but sometimes there are like underlying beliefs that you're unaware of, and when you're unaware of them, it kind of tugs at your heart when someone brings it up because maybe it's an underlying belief that you have and now they're making you question if what your belief is true. I think like
Mhm.
that's when we start to feel a little bit of anger or get defensive or irritated. That's how I describe it for myself. So when someone says something and I start to get irritated about it, I start to ask myself, like, what are you irritated about? What
Yeah.
what belief did you create in the past that makes it so this person talking to you in this way or communicating to you in this way or touching you in this way is causing you to now feel like that moment in the past is happening right now? And and it's just weird because for instance, like you and I, we don't believe in unicorns. I'm sure you've never seen one, you
I
wouldn't
have 2
believe in them.
daughters. I've had to believe in unicorns for years.
Well, the thing about the unicorn is like a unicorn looks like a believable creature, but you know it doesn't exist because everyone agrees that it doesn't exist. So if you
Sure.
saw one, you would be like, "Holy crap, I finally saw a unicorn." And if you tried to tell other people about it, they
I
would
think you're
explain to
crazy.
you, yeah, they're like, "Oh, it's just a horse with a horn or whatever." But like if you think about it, a giraffe seems crazy because it looks like a horse with a ridiculously long neck, but everyone
Yeah.
agrees on it. So it's like how many of my beliefs are based on the fact that just the group I'm with agrees with it? How many of my beliefs are like considered crazy to others and I'm afraid to share them? I just like try to go about it in that same way, like realizing that all of my beliefs are a little bit crazy. It's just that if I get enough people to agree with me, I'll be like, yeah, cool. Like we all
Then you
believe
see
this.
rationality in it. Yeah, that's
Yeah, now it's
awesome.
right, right. So like we see rationality when enough people agree with the belief that we all feel kind of cuddled up and happy about it, but it doesn't necessarily make the belief true. And so you got to like I spend a lot of time just asking myself and reading these books trying to figure out what of my beliefs could I like throw away because they actually don't serve me or I don't really believe that thing about myself anymore. It's
Would
just
you
like
would you be throwing them away to fill them with other beliefs, or would it be more of like you enjoy the empty space in which you'd be throwing them away from kind of deal?
I
Does that
would,
make any sense?
it did. I
Okay.
try not to immediately answer. I try to think just for a second before I say things. So
I also have a tendency to say weird sentences, so I
yeah.
I gotta make
So,
sure.
so let me. I would say that in one of my favorite books, it's by Alan Watts, The Wisdom of Insecurity. One of the points he makes is that when you try to hold on to something too tight, you end up actually losing the thing. So, like for instance, if you wanted to hold on to your breath forever, you would actually choke to death because like the oxygen runs out. You have to
Right.
breathe out in order to be secure. So the second that you are holding on to the air, you become insecure because you're losing the air, but you're afraid to let it go. It's the same idea with beliefs. I've had so many beliefs about life that have been wrong for me that I started to
Same.
recognize that it's not so much that the belief is true as much as I enjoy the fact that I want to believe this. And like that's what I'm trying to do with my life. So it's not necessarily that I'm holding on to the idea because I believe it's inexplicably true and I don't exist without the belief. It's more along the lines of I let go of a belief because I want to just do something that I enjoy. So I tell people like I'm married to truth, not consistency. And truth is just like from whatever perspective you have. So if I wake up one day and I say like I don't like this belief anymore, instead of trying to fight and hold on to it, I'll just let it go and then do something else. And
Right,
that's
you're fluid with
yeah.
it. Like you can't hold on to the same feelings. Like I was raised Jewish.
Hmm.
I still, I mean, I guess you could say I still identify as a Jew because
Hmm.
I celebrated the high holidays and all. But I mean, I
Hmm.
have tattoos. I eat bacon. I'm probably the worst Jew on the planet. However, I see the values in that base belief. You
Right.
know, the camaraderie, the community, the love and understanding of a similar people.
Right.
Um, and then as you get older and you mature, you kind of start to see that not every Jewish person's a nice person, and not
Right.
every, you know what I mean? And then you start to see, well, hey, listen, this person's way different, and then you start to expand outward. Like I get
Hmm.
religion in a sense. I'm more of a spiritual being at this point with
Hmm.
all the things I've done to work on myself.
Hmm.
What do they say in recovery? Religion is man-made, spirituality is God-made, kind of deal.
Hmm. Hmm.
um it seems to be like you kind of, what did I said it to one of my guests a while back. He's an old friend of mine who came in after like 15 years of not seeing him, and he like forced an adversity upon himself. He saw himself as a stagnant being. If you go down my TikTok a little bit, it's Donnie Palmer. He wrote a book, When Trees Become Walls.
Hmm.
He found himself in a stagnant situation. He found himself not growing, and he just looked for the most intense situation he can think of that he could be qualified to assist with. And he went to like
Hmm.
a an outdoor boarding school, and they were like everything was built by the campers and the staff, and everything like they were chopping trees down and pulling stumps
Wow.
out, and like lumberjacks living in the woods for like a year. And you force the adversity upon yourself, or you don't tend to grow.
Hmm.
You know how they say like branches tend to strengthen in heavy winds. It's
Hmm.
because they keep swaying back and forth, and eventually they're strong enough to hold steady.
Hmm. Hmm. I can agree with that. You know, the thing about traditions is that they help us to feel connected to others. And like we think that certain traditions matter more than others, but the truth is we just love being able to feel like when we walk into a room or we meet someone random that there's something that connects us. Like that's why we love sports, right? If you're a Redskins fan or a Raiders fan or a Jets fan, when
Mhm,
you see someone else, there's a belief about who we are as like a team and
mhm,
we identify with that. And then that makes the conversation and the barrier to trust a little bit easier. And so like when you think about what does it mean to be Jewish or Christian or whatever the different things are, when you believe that you are something and then you see someone else who fits that same mold, there's suddenly a shared experience without ever even having to talk. That's the hope. That's the goal, right? Like that's what it
right.
means to be a Republican or a Democrat or liberal or conservative or whatever. That is actually what matters, I believe, the most to us. That like someone else is going to confirm that I am who I believe I am, and I'm going to confirm that they are who I believe they are, and we now share this experience. It helps me not feel alone. But I think sometimes we'll try to hold on to those because we don't know who we are without it, to the
Mhm,
extent that it starts to damage us, but we're just not willing to let it go because we're afraid of what will be coming out of that. And that's the point that I just try to make to people, whether it's that you take on hard things, whether it's that you switch up your life and leave, whether you travel, whatever the case is, the answer is as true as you believe it to be. But when you stop believing in it, it becomes damaging to try to maintain that belief because you're
mm,
like at odds with yourself, basically. Like there's a part of you that knows it's not true, but you're trying everything you can to make sure that it's true.
sure.
And I think that's what leads to a lot of like just challenges in people's lives. That's what led to my anger at the end of the day. I was
Mhm.
angry because in a moment it all came out that I wasn't who I said I was, and so I'm angry at everything that feels like it holds me back into that position. So I would hurt the people that I felt like were a part of that.
Mhm.
It's very interesting.
I find most of my anger stems from like at this point my anger has shifted from the exterior world to now trying to maintain my anger like in my house. Kids are very stressful. Do
Mhm.
you have kids?
I don't have any kids, but I have five brothers and sisters, so I'm
Oh, okay,
super
okay,
aware.
fair enough. So, kids are
Uh-huh.
stressful as all hell,
Yeah.
and I have a 3-year-old and 11-year-old, so one literally just shits and the other just gives me shit, and so it's a constant barrage of keeping one safe and keeping one's attitude in check and helping them grow as a young person,
Mhm.
and then I find my most of my anger comes out when I see the negative aspects of myself in them. You know what I mean? And it almost
Mhm.
becomes like a don't fucking do that. I already know it's a terrible idea. You
Right,
know what
right,
I
right.
mean? And it goes into like this defense again. It goes into that like PTSD defense from the exterior. Like I just want to shield you kind of anger. And
Mhm,
and then I also have like again in sales, it's one of those things where people require a lot of patience, especially when they don't know something. They
mhm,
require a lot of patience, and especially when money's involved, and
mhm,
especially when it's a huge purchase that they know very little about. It requires a lot of patience, and sometimes you do run out. It is a thing. You do run out on you, or you do run on fumes, and with long work days and stuff like that, you have a tendency to run your patient's course. And
mhm,
and by the time you get home, you're giving your family a depleted version of that patience.
mhm.
If that makes any sense.
It makes sense. I think the thing that's been the most helpful to me recently, I finished this book called Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism, and one of the points it makes is that like in our journey, we start to become attached to ideas of what is a good or bad day, what is a good situation and a bad situation. And so because we have identified something as bad, we then run into the need for resilience against those things. And one of the things I've been practicing is, what if I could find a process by which to try to enjoy all things? Like, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it happens today or tomorrow, but like, what if I could even see the adversity of situations as like a way to better understand myself? Like, because when you were in my thing the other day, one of the points I made was that if you want to unconditionally love anyone, you kind of have to unconditionally love everyone, including yourself, because you can't
Sure.
give something that you don't have, right? Like what you just said with your kids, like when you see something that you know maybe you didn't love about yourself being exhibited by your kid, the anger that you feel is less towards a child as much as it is a reminder of where you've been or what you've had happen, and now you're
Mm.
trying to help them get through that thing. But like what I've been trying to do is more come along the lines of, when I do start to feel the irritation or the frustration, can I be excited about the idea that I'm going to get to work on something that like otherwise I would view as negative, and it's slowly been able to help me gain more energy in the idea of working through overcoming uh, the obstacles that give me the ability to have a new perspective in life. If that does that make sense? It's almost like
Yeah, yeah,
trying to shift the belief in general. Because I
yeah.
used to be just so drained at the end of every single day, like doing my work, trying to do this,
Mhm.
trying to show up, trying to be there. And now I'm trying to shift the idea of needing resilience and more of the excitement of like, could I be the same level of excited as I would be if I found out I was winning $1 billion with the lotto, as when I start to feel irritated because someone is reminding me of a thing about myself that I don't like, and now I have the opportunity to overcome it. And so it's not an easy process. It hasn't been an easy process by any means, but it's like
No.
been worth trying, if that
And I
makes
don't
sense.
think it's a process I'll ever complete, I think it's always gonna
Mhm,
be a constant growth type deal, like, it's like with anything else. If you wanna continue to be better at it or continue to
mhm,
be good at it, you do have to practice. It's like playing on a football team, you know what I mean?
mhm.
If you're gonna get really bad at football if you just stop practicing, you know what I mean?
Right,
And
right, right,
other people are gonna have the advantage.
right.
And all right, man. I really appreciate all that. This has been and truth be told, man, you're one of the first guests I have that I haven't known personally. Like I've been again, I'm a salesman, so I've been actually doing follow up with people reaching out, and you are one of the people that reached back out, and you have a great
Mhm.
message.
Thanks.
Do me a favor, can you send me all these a list of these books?
Yeah.
This podcast has forced me to read a book, so I think I can
Okay.
do. I think I got a couple more in me. I think I got a couple.
I have a link, so it's called Wrote By. So the wroteby.me/ Django is my link. I'll send it to you so you can just
Yeah,
have it. But it
fantastic.
basically allows for me to share all of the books that like I love the most. So like Courage to Be Disliked, Four Agreements, Letting Go. All these
That's
books are in
awesome.
there. So I'll send it over to you. And it also has all my other links like Instagram, YouTube, the book link, and all the other stuff. So you can utilize that and share that out.
That's awesome. Before I let you go, I had
Mhm.
one question written down
Yeah.
that I wanted to ask you
Yeah. Ask
about.
away, man.
You obviously have a huge vision of the world around you. You
Hmm.
obviously have a good grasp of people and where certain feelings come from. If
Hmm.
you could paint it into a perfect light and kind of help us all self-realize maybe a very broad thing about ourselves and kind of give us like a daily mantra, weekly mantra, something you should continuously tell yourself in order to help you push forward or help you overcome that adversity. if you could sum that up into a phrase, a sentence, hell, if it's a haiku, either way, what would that sound like?
Um, I would say that believing is a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so I say that to myself all the time because there are things that I don't believe. And I realize that if I just started trying to believe it, it might be uncomfortable to start, but eventually I'm able to believe it. Like the same way that I used to be able to say I was stupid or an idiot really easy because I used to say that to myself all the time. But now I say I say to myself, I'm sensational, amazing, incredible, fabulous, fantastic. Like I now believe those things and that keeps coming out. So like believing is a self-fulfilling prophecy. And
Sure.
so
Manifesting.
even right, but it's like, but it's also just believing a word that you say about yourself. And I keep trying to speak these positive words to myself, even as it's uncomfortable, because I know eventually I'm going to say it and it's going to be really easy to say. It's just like studying for a test, right? Like you keep saying it over and over and over and over again. And eventually you remember 1 + 1 = 2. You don't have to think about it because you believe it, you know it.
Right.
I do the same thing in trying to be positive towards myself and treat myself the way I would want others to be treated. So I just remind myself, believing is a self-fulfilling prophecy. So as long as I say, hey, I'm going to believe this, it's crazy how quick it actually becomes true for you. So believing is a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's what I keep telling myself.
Thank you very much, dude. This has been
Thank you, man.
absolutely awesome, and I'm gonna keep following you. Drop your socials one more time, bud. I'm sorry.
So here's what I'll say. If you go to wroteby.me/Django, all of my socials, all of my links, and all of my favorite books are there. So again, it's like wrote by, like I wrote it, and then instead of .com, it's .me, and then / my name, DJANGO. And literally there, you'll see all of my links, my TikTok, my Instagram, my YouTube, as well as all the books that I absolutely love and the book that I'm writing.
Fantastic. And when I edit this up, I'll make sure that's
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
I hear that a million times, and I'm gonna put that on there. I promise, man. Hey,
Of course,
listen,
man.
thank you again for joining me. I appreciate it, and keep doing what you're doing, man.
Yeah, man.
I look forward to the next message.
I look forward to coming back too, man. Let me know if you ever get if you have the opportunity. I'd love to be able to come back and talk to you again.
I do book reviews. Let me know when that book's finished, man. Let
All
me
right,
know when
man.
it becomes something you want to share with everybody. Let me know.
Thanks, man. It means a lot.
Absolutely, dude. Have a good one.
I don't wanna talk. How you try and press the kid and read it, you was soft. All you know is capping, homie, you don't know the law. Pedal to the metal, you ain't catching me in park. I just hit the stop. I don't wanna speak. Talking all that good, so I just hit you with the please. Running up the score like Tyreek, I'm going deep. Watch me how I'm saucing, I be spreading it with ease. You gon' see the peace. You gon' see the flex when you hear these writtens. Trust me, you know the difference. I got a long ways to climb before you see it slip.